people assume humiliation hits all at once, like a slap to the face. For me, it came in tiny, sharp moments, a smirk here, a whispered comment there, until everything erupted at my mother's 60th birthday dinner. The restaurant was one of those expensive places with white tablecloths and waiters who refill your water glass before you realize it's empty. Lana stood at the center of the private dining room, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her hair fell in perfect waves, her makeup looked professionally done, and she wore that smile, the one that always meant trouble was coming my way. "You actually came, Kira," she said, her voice carrying across the room loud enough for the photographers she'd hired to catch every word. "I wasn't sure you could afford to Uber this far uptown. Don't you still live with roommates in that tiny apartment?" Laughter rippled through the room like poison spreading through water. Our cousins tried to hide their smiles behind champagne glasses. Our aunt looked away uncomfortably. Even Mom seemed embarrassed, though I couldn't tell if she was embarrassed for me or of me. I just smiled back, my heart surprisingly steady. Because I knew something Lana didn't. The building we were standing in, this exclusive venue she'd chosen to show off, was one of mine. I owned it through a holding company called Winslow Urban Group. The marble floors beneath her designer heels, the crystal chandeliers casting flattering light on her Instagram photos, the floor-to-ceiling windows with panoramic city views, all mine. Every square inch of this place that she'd picked to humiliate me belonged to me. And tonight, the only person in this room who didn't know it was her. When you grow up with a sister like Lana, you learn early that silence is power. She thrived on reaction, every raised eyebrow, every stammered defense, every tear shed fed her ego like gasoline feeds fire. So over the years, I'd learned to smile, to nod politely, to say nothing that could be twisted into ammunition against me later. I toasted our mother, congratulated Lana on her latest influencer campaign, and said nothing about the insult. But that night, after the dinner finally ended and I escaped to my penthouse apartment, I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows staring at the city skyline. A skyline dotted with buildings that bore my invisible fingerprints. Each tower represented a battle Lana didn't know I'd fought. The late nights reviewing contracts until my eyes burned and my coffee went cold. The near-bankruptcy moments when one wrong decision could have destroyed everything I'd built. The betrayals from business partners I'd once trusted with my life savings. The loans I'd taken out when traditional banks laughed at my business plan and told me to be more realistic. Lana had the luxury of image, of appearance, of showing up looking perfect while sponsors paid her to hold their products. I had the reality of survival. Of building something real from nothing but determination and sleepless nights. We weren't always enemies. As kids, Lana had followed me everywhere, borrowing my clothes without asking, copying my handwriting on school assignments, even sneaking into my college business classes when she was still in high school. Back then, I thought it was admiration. Sweet, even. My little sister looking up to me, wanting to be like me. Later, much later, I realized it wasn't admiration at all. It was envy wearing an admiration costume. Envy that would eventually curdle into something darker, something that couldn't stand to see me succeed at anything. When I failed my first startup at 24, losing everything I'd saved and borrowed, Lana laughed it off publicly at family gatherings. "At least you tried," she'd said with that fake sympathetic smile, her hand on my shoulder like she cared. "Some people just aren't meant to be entrepreneurs. Maybe you should get a regular job like normal people." The relatives had nodded sympathetically, completely missing the cruelty underneath her words. The implication that I should give up, settle, accept that I wasn't special enough to build something meaningful. But then, years later when her influencer brand got bad press for promoting a scam diet product, she called me at 2 a.m. crying hysterically. "At least you're smart," she'd sobbed into the phone while I listened half asleep. "I just smile for money. I'm not like you, Kira. I'm not actually good at anything real." I'd comforted her then, stayed on the phone until she fell asleep, genuinely believing we were still sisters who supported each other through hard times. The truth is, I didn't plan to hide my success. It just happened naturally, almost by accident. After the disaster with my first company, the one that left me sleeping on friends' couches and eating ramen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I built the next one quietly. The real estate market doesn't care about flash or Instagram followers or who has the most designer bags. It rewards patience, careful research, perfect timing, and the ability to see potential where others see only problems. So I learned how to wait. How to watch. How to let others underestimate me while I worked silently in the background, building something they couldn't see coming. When people think you're harmless or struggling or beneath them, they reveal everything: their greed, their arrogance, their deepest weaknesses. They talk freely around you, share secrets, make assumptions that you're too unimportant to matter. That's how I learned about Lana's real life, the one hidden behind her carefully curated Instagram feed. The maxed out credit cards she hid from everyone. The fake sponsorships where companies sent her free products but never actually paid her $1. The designer clothes she rented for photos and then returned the next day. The luxury apartment she couldn't actually afford but needed for her image. The husband, Marcus, who was already talking to divorce lawyers and planning his exit strategy. I had all the pieces of information, scattered across casual conversations with mutual friends, overheard phone calls at family events, even some public records that anyone could access if they bothered to look. But I wasn't ready to play those cards yet. Not yet. Because revenge isn't about striking first. It's about striking last, when they least expect it, when the fall will hurt the most. 2 months after that humiliating birthday dinner, I received an email from Rachel, a commercial realtor I'd worked with for years. Potential client, high-profile influencer looking for urgent investment partner for ambitious commercial property venture. Interested in meeting? Attached was a proposal document. The client's name was listed at the bottom, Lana Morrison. My sister. She didn't recognize my company's name, Winslow Urban Group. She had no idea her big sister owned it. She just saw what she thought was an opportunity to look wealthy again, to create another illusion for her desperate followers. My assistant, Patricia, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd been with me since the early days, looked at me hesitantly when I forwarded her the email. "Do we want to take this meeting?" she asked carefully. She knew about my complicated family situation. I'd vented to her enough times after particularly cruel social media posts from Lana. "Absolutely, we'll take the meeting," I said, and Patricia must have heard something in my voice because she raised an eyebrow. "Schedule it for next week. That trendy cafe downtown, casual setting." "And Patricia? Don't mention my name in the confirmation email. Just say a senior representative from the firm will attend." I wanted to see how far Lana would go before realizing who she was really dealing with. Revenge didn't need noise or drama or confrontation. It just needed time and surgical precision. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at an upscale cafe downtown, the kind with artisanal coffee that costs $12 and minimalist decor that's supposed to look effortless but is carefully designed. I arrived 20 minutes early, choosing a table near the back with a clear view of the entrance. I wanted to watch Lana arrive, see how she carried herself when she thought she was meeting with people who could give her what she desperately needed. Lana arrived 15 minutes late, fashionably late, she'd probably say. Designer sunglasses covered half her face despite being indoors. Her phone was clutched in one hand like a lifeline. A designer bag that I recognized from her Instagram posts hung from her shoulder. "Kira," she said when she spotted me, stopping so suddenly that someone behind her almost walked into her back. Her shock was visible even behind those oversized sunglasses. "What are you doing here?" "I thought I was meeting with someone from Winslow Urban Group." I gestured calmly to the seat across from me, keeping my expression neutral and professional. "You are." "I'm here on behalf of the firm you contacted about your proposal." Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, embarrassment, then that forced brightness she always used to cover discomfort. Oh. "Oh wow, what a small world. I didn't realize you worked for them." That's actually kind of great. When did you get this job? Are you like an assistant or something?" I didn't correct her assumption that I was just an employee, someone low on the corporate ladder, someone she could still look down on even while asking for help. I let her believe I was working for someone else, that the real decision makers were somewhere else, that I was still the struggling sister living with roommates in a tiny apartment. It's amazing how quickly people reveal their true selves when they think you're beneath them, when they believe they have nothing to lose by being honest, or cruel. Lana settled into her chair, pulling out a leather portfolio that looked expensive but was probably another rental, another prop for the image she was desperately trying to maintain. So, I sent over the proposal last week. Did your boss review it yet? I think it's really solid. Several other firms are interested too, but I wanted to give you guys first look because, you know, family connection and all. She said family like it was a bargaining chip, like the years of mockery and humiliation could be erased with one word when she needed something. Like I should feel grateful she was giving me this opportunity to help her. I opened my own folder, actual business documents, not props for Instagram photos, and pulled out a pen. Why don't you walk me through your vision? I said professionally, my tone giving nothing away. Start from the beginning. What exactly are you proposing? Her whole face lit up with that enthusiasm she usually reserved for unboxing videos and product promotions. She launched into her pitch with the energy of someone who'd practiced in front of a mirror dozens of times. Okay, so imagine this, she began, her hands gesturing dramatically. The Lana Residences. A luxury lifestyle complex featuring my brand, my aesthetic, my entire vision. My name in gorgeous letters on the building, maybe lit up at night. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through mock-ups she'd clearly paid someone to create. Digital renderings of a building that didn't exist, filled with spaces designed to look like her apartment. Each unit would have my signature style, you know, lots of white and gold, Instagram-worthy corners in every room, perfect lighting. We'd have a cafe on the ground floor serving aesthetic drinks, a boutique selling my merchandise and favorite products, maybe even a spa or salon. It would be a destination, Kira. A lifestyle brand you can actually live inside. People would pay premium prices just to say they live in a Lana building. I listened calmly, taking notes, even amused in a detached way. The entire concept was financially impossible, the math didn't work for the target market she'd identified. It was legally complicated, trademark issues alone would tie it up in court for years. And it was socially delusional. My market research team had already proven that nobody actually wanted to live inside an influencer's personal brand experience. But she was so confident, so completely convinced of her own brilliance and marketability. She genuinely believed people would pay extra just to associate with her name. When she finally finished her pitch, breathless from her own excitement, she leaned in with that conspiratorial smile I remembered from childhood. So, you'll talk to your boss for me, right? Put in a good word? I mean, we're sisters. That has to count for something. You could really help me here, Kira. I nodded slowly, closing my folder with deliberate care. Of course. I'll bring this to the decision makers and see what they think about moving forward. Her relief was visible, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since she'd sat down. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you so much. This is going to be incredible. I can already see the launch party. We'll get it featured in Architectural Digest, maybe even Vogue. That night, I sat in my actual office, the corner one with floor-to-ceiling windows and my name on the door that Lana had never seen, and emailed my business partner, Jonah. He'd been with me since the beginning, had watched me rebuild after that first devastating failure, knew both versions of me. The invisible real estate mogul and the wounded younger sister. Approve preliminary feasibility study for Morrison project, I typed. Budgeted appropriately, but let's see how deep she's willing to go before reality hits. Jonah was the only person who knew the full story, who'd seen me cry after Lana's particularly cruel Instagram posts, who'd watched me channel that pain into late-night work sessions and ambitious deals. He called me instead of emailing back, his voice concerned. Kira, are you absolutely sure about this? This feels personal. Very personal. And mixing business with personal revenge has destroyed better people than us. I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to my own ears. Everything's personal, Jonah. Business, family, success, failure, it's all personal. I just don't make it obvious anymore. That's what separates successful revenge from messy public drama. He sighed, and I could picture him in his home office, running his hand through his gray hair the way he did when he was worried about me. Then let's play this game carefully. But promise me you won't let it destroy you in the process of destroying her. That's not a trade worth making. Together over the next few days, we drafted contractual terms that looked generous on the surface but were carefully designed to test Lana's limits and reveal her true financial situation. Initial feasibility study costs borne entirely by her. Trademark agreements that gave us significant control. Payment schedules that would expose whether she actually had any real money or just the appearance of wealth. I wasn't after her money, she barely had any real wealth anyway, just the illusion of it. I wanted something more valuable. I wanted her truth. The reality behind her carefully constructed facade. And truth always reveals itself under pressure, like diamonds forming deep underground. Within 2 weeks, Lana started sending messages. First they were casual, trying to sound relaxed. Hey sis. Just checking in. Did your boss get a chance to look at the proposal yet? Then they got more frequent, the desperation starting to show. Any updates? I have other investors asking questions but I really want to work with you guys. Family first, right? Then the messages started coming late at night, when her guard was down and her fear was showing. Kira, can you maybe push them a little? This means everything to me. This is my chance to build something real, not just social media fluff. Please. The irony was almost painful to witness. She'd once mocked me publicly for caring too much about work, for spending weekends on business plans instead of going to parties and posting photos. You're going to work yourself to death for nothing, she'd said at a family dinner years ago, loud enough for everyone to hear. Nobody becomes a millionaire from boring spreadsheets and business plans. You need personality, charisma. Things you can't learn from books. Now here she was, begging me for access to a deal that didn't even really exist yet, proving she understood nothing about how real business actually worked. I didn't reply to her messages right away. I let her sit in that silence, wondering and waiting and worrying. The same silence she'd given me when I'd needed help after my first company collapsed. When I'd asked to borrow money for rent and she'd left me on read for 3 days before responding with a curt, "Can't help, sorry. Money's tight." Meanwhile posting photos from expensive restaurants and luxury shopping trips. The final proposal meeting was scheduled at our firm's headquarters. 6 months earlier, I'd moved the company to a new building, 43 floors of steel and glass in the heart of the financial district. Our boardroom was designed to impress and intimidate, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the entire city, a marble conference table that could seat 20 people, modern art on the walls, technology seamlessly integrated into every surface. Lana arrived 30 minutes early this time. Patricia told me she'd been sitting in our minimalist lobby, visibly nervous, checking her reflection in every reflective surface she could find, adjusting her outfit and hair repeatedly. When our executives filed into the boardroom, I'd assembled a team of 4 senior people to make everything look more official and important. Lana sat up straighter in her chair. She switched on her charm like flipping a light switch, that bright smile and enthusiastic energy she used in her videos. She dressed in her most professional outfit, though I recognized it from her Instagram as another rental from a designer boutique she'd tagged and then quickly untagged. I stayed quiet during most of the meeting, sitting to the side with my laptop open, taking notes, playing the role of the junior employee there to document everything for people more important than her. Lana presented slides full of business buzzwords she clearly didn't understand: synergy, and vertical integration, and brand ecosystem. Words she'd probably Googled the night before. She showed graphs of her social media growth, carefully cropped to hide the recent decline in engagement. She displayed photos of herself at glamorous events, as if attendance at parties translated to business acumen. She presented architectural mock-ups of buildings that would cost 3 times her projected budget, in neighborhoods where the demographic data didn't support her target market. When she finished and the room fell into that heavy silence that meant nobody was impressed, nobody was buying what she was selling, I finally spoke up. "Thank you, Lana," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the boardroom. The board appreciates your passion and vision for this project." Her eyes softened when she looked at me, maybe the first genuine warmth I'd seen from her in years. Maybe she was finally seeing me as capable, professional, someone valuable. Maybe she was realizing I knew things, understood things, could help her. That made what was coming next even sweeter. After the meeting ended and the executives filed out, I found Lana waiting in the hallway outside the boardroom. She practically jumped on me, grabbing my arm with both hands, her face bright with desperate hope. "Kira, you were amazing in there. The way you spoke up at the end, the way you framed everything for them, you really know this world." "I've learned a few things over the years," I said simply, keeping my expression neutral. She smiled wide, and for a brief second it almost looked genuine, almost looked like the sister I remembered from childhood. "You should really ask your boss for a raise. Seriously. You're clearly way too valuable to be just taking notes and sending emails. You could be making real money, having real influence." The condescension was unintentional, which somehow made it worse, made it cut deeper. Even when trying to be complimentary, trying to be kind, she couldn't help but assume I was beneath her, struggling, less successful. She couldn't imagine any reality where I was above her. She actually hugged me then, pulled me into a tight embrace that I didn't return. "Thank you for believing in me when nobody else does," she whispered against my shoulder. "You're a good sister." I know I don't say that enough. I stood there with my arms at my sides, feeling the weight of that manipulation. Using family bonds when it benefited her, ignoring them when it didn't. As she walked toward the elevators, checking her reflection one more time in the polished metal doors, Jonah appeared beside me. "You sure you can stomach this?" he asked quietly, his voice full of concern. "Watching her thank you while you're destroying her?" "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded, how certain I felt. "But she won't be able to stomach what comes next." Weeks passed in a blur of carefully orchestrated manipulation. Lana started posting on social media about her upcoming major partnership with a prominent development firm. She threw an expensive party at a venue she couldn't afford, charging everything to credit cards that were already maxed out. She gave interviews to small lifestyle blogs and local influencer podcasts about expanding her empire beyond social media into real estate. Every lie she posted publicly made the truth more explosive, built the house of cards higher. Jonah sent me screenshots of her Instagram stories throughout each day, each one more elaborate and delusional than the last. "She's really building the gallows she's going to hang from," he commented. "Every claim she makes publicly is another thing that'll humiliate her when it all collapses." I stared at my computer screen late one night, my reflection faint in the dark glass, the city lights blinking beyond. "No," I whispered, more to myself than to Jonah. "I'm not building a trap for her. She's building her own stage, her own spotlight. I'm just controlling when the curtain falls and the lights come on." The turning point came 3 weeks later. Lana sent a formal email, not a casual text, but an actual business email, demanding an advance payment. For initial branding and press release preparation, the email explained in language she'd clearly copied from some business template. "I'll need $50,000 immediately to properly launch the public announcement of this partnership." Jonah wanted to cut her off immediately, to end the charade right there. "This is it," he said firmly during our call. "This is where we tell her no, explain reality, and end this entire thing before it goes too far." But I shook my head even though he couldn't see me. "Let her run," I said calmly. "She'll trip faster that way, and the fall will be that much harder. Send her $30,000 with extremely strict contractual terms about how it can be used. Make her sign more agreements. Let her dig deeper." We released a carefully worded statement through our PR firm. Winslow Urban Group announces preliminary discussions regarding a strategic collaboration with a prominent lifestyle influencer for an innovative residential concept. Further details to be announced pending feasibility completion. Within hours, Lana's face was everywhere she'd ever dreamed of being. Real estate gossip blogs picked it up. Industry newsletters mentioned it. Lifestyle websites wrote speculation pieces. Her Instagram followers exploded with comments asking questions and expressing excitement. She reposted everything, adding her own dramatic commentary about dreams coming true, and building an empire, and just the beginning of something incredible. What she didn't know, what she didn't bother to read carefully in all those contracts she'd eagerly signed, was that we now owned commercial rights to her name within any real estate project materials. The Lana brand she'd spent years building online? Legally ours to use within the property development context. One signature on documents she'd barely skimmed through. The unraveling began on a Wednesday morning 3 weeks later. Lana called my personal cell phone, not a text, but an actual call, and when I saw her name on my screen, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. I wanted to hear her voice when reality started crashing down around her carefully constructed illusions. "You tricked me," she screamed the moment I answered, her voice raw with panic and rage. "You knew exactly what those contracts meant. You knew what I was signing away. How could you do this to me? How could you do this to your own sister?" I put her on speaker, calmly continuing to type emails while she raged. "I knew you were signing legal contracts, yes. That's generally how business transactions work, Lana. You read documents carefully before signing them. Don't play stupid, Kira." Her voice cracked with desperation. "The lawyers just explained everything to me. You own my name now. You control my brand in real estate. How could you trick me like this? You don't understand, this is my entire life. This is everything I've built. My whole identity." I stopped typing. Let the silence stretch out between us, heavy and thick. Then, very calmly, very deliberately, "No, Lana. This is business. The thing you said I'd never understand. The thing you publicly mocked me for caring about. Remember? Nobody becomes a millionaire from boring spreadsheets." Another silence, even heavier this time. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, "You did this on purpose. From the very beginning. The cafe meeting, the proposal discussions, the contracts, you planned all of it to destroy me." "Yes," I said simply, not denying it, not apologizing for it. "But you helped. Every signature you rushed through without reading. Every assumption you made that I was too stupid or too unsuccessful to matter. Every time you treated me like your servant instead of your partner. You helped build this." She hung up without another word. I sat there staring at my phone, waiting to feel triumphant, waiting for the satisfaction I'd imagined during all those late nights planning this. Instead, I felt empty. Hollow. Like I'd won a battle but couldn't remember why I'd wanted to fight it. The scandal erupted the next day like a bomb detonating in slow motion. Screenshots of contracts leaked online. I suspected Lana's lawyer, desperately trying to build public sympathy for her situation. Headlines appeared on gossip sites and business blogs, "Influencer trapped by fine print in development deal," and "The dark side of celebrity business partnerships." Investors who'd expressed casual interest in Lana's other vague projects immediately pulled out, not wanting to be associated with legal drama and bad publicity. Brands canceled sponsorships within hours, their PR teams working overtime to distance themselves from the controversy. Her carefully curated image as a successful entrepreneur was crumbling in real time across every platform. Then came the news that hit her hardest. Her husband Marcus filed for divorce that same week. The papers cited irreconcilable differences, but gossip websites quickly revealed the real story through anonymous sources. He discovered her actual financial situation, the massive debt she'd hidden, the house of cards about to collapse completely. Money had been Lana's god, the thing she worshipped above everything else including family, and when it abandoned her, so did everyone else in her carefully curated life. I should have felt satisfaction watching it all unfold. Victory. Justice served cold and perfect. Instead, I felt that same hollow emptiness. Watching her crumble on social media, the desperate posts trying to explain her side, the slowly decreasing follower count, the comments section turning from supportive to cruelly mocking. Didn't erase the years of hurt she'd caused me. It just reminded me how fragile everything was. Reputation, pride, love, family bonds. All of it could shatter with one wrong signature. But I had one final card to play, one last move in this game. The real estate industry's biggest annual conference was scheduled for 6 weeks away. The keynote speaker had canceled last minute due to a medical emergency, and the organizers were desperately searching for a high-profile replacement. My assistant Patricia walked into my office one morning with a knowing smile on her face. "The conference organizers reached out," she said, setting a formal invitation on my desk. "They're asking if you'd consider keynoting the Saturday morning session. Prime time slot, 2,000 attendees, live streaming to thousands more, major industry press coverage." I stared at the embossed invitation. It would be my public debut as the real Kira Winslow, founder and CEO of Winslow Urban Group. The moment I stopped hiding behind corporate structures and shell companies and legal entities. "Accept it," I said firmly. "But don't issue press releases yet. No early announcements. I want it to be a complete surprise when I walk on that stage." I didn't personally invite Lana to attend. But I knew she'd be there. She always showed up wherever there was attention, networking opportunities, cameras, a chance to rebuild her shattered image and make new connections. The morning of my keynote presentation, I stood backstage in the massive convention center, adjusting my navy blazer in the mirror. My hands were completely steady, which surprised me. For 5 years, I'd been invisible, working from behind corporate structures and legal entities and holding companies. Today, bright lights would find me. Today, everyone in the industry would finally know my name and face. The introduction began playing on enormous screens throughout the hall. "Please welcome the visionary founder and CEO of Winslow Urban Group, currently overseeing $480 million in commercial and residential properties across the Northeast region, Kira Winslow." The applause started before I even stepped through the curtain. I walked onto that massive stage, and for a moment the entire world became a blur of lights and movement. Then my vision cleared, sharpened, focused. There, sitting in a section reserved for media and VIP guests near the front, was Lana. Her face went through a transformation I knew I would remember for the rest of my life. Confusion first. Why was her struggling sister's name being announced as a keynote speaker? Then recognition as I walked into the spotlight and waved to the applauding crowd. Then complete disbelief, her mouth literally falling open. Then something that looked like physical pain crossing her features. I met her eyes briefly across the crowded auditorium and smiled, not cruelly, not triumphantly, just knowingly. Like I was saying, yes, it was me all along. Every building, every deal, every success you never knew about. "Thank you all for that incredibly warm welcome," I began, my voice steady and clear through the professional sound system. "Our mission at Winslow Urban has always been simple but powerful, to create spaces that empower people to rise. To build not just structures, but opportunities. Because I believe deeply that even the underestimated, especially the underestimated, deserve a place to rise and prove everyone wrong." The crowd erupted in sustained applause. People throughout the enormous hall rose to their feet. Camera flashes popped like small fireworks across the darkness. Lana remained frozen in her seat, the only completely still figure in an ocean of movement and noise. I continued my presentation, talking about my journey from failed startup founder to successful developer. About sleeping on friends' couches and surviving on ramen and having supposedly smart people laugh directly at my business plans. About learning that people who mock your dreams often do so because your potential success threatens their comfortable worldview. I never mentioned Lana by name. I never had to. The people who knew our story understood every reference, every carefully chosen word. Afterward, the crowd swarmed around me like I was a celebrity. Business cards pressed into my hands, requests for photos, questions from journalists, interview requests from podcasts and magazines. I answered everything graciously, smiled for every camera, and slowly made my way through the chaos toward the exit. That's where I found Lana waiting, tucked into a quiet corner near the bathrooms like she was hiding from everyone. "Kira," she whispered when our eyes met, and I noticed hers were red-rimmed but dry. "It was you? This whole time?" All those buildings, all that money, all that success, it was really you? I nodded slowly, deliberately. Every single project. Every property. Every deal. Every so-called failure that everyone laughed about, they all led me here to this moment. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away furiously, fighting to maintain even a shred of dignity. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say something? All those times I said those horrible things, why didn't you just tell me the truth? Would you have listened? I asked simply, genuinely curious about her answer. Would you have actually believed me? Or would you have found some way to diminish it, to make yourself feel superior anyway? She opened her mouth to argue, to defend herself, then closed it. For perhaps the first time in her entire life, Lana had no words. No clever comeback, no deflection, no way to spin this situation into something that made her look better. We stood there in that corner while people streamed past us toward the next session, nobody recognizing the personal drama playing out in the shadows of my very public triumph. Finally, she spoke again. I was jealous of you. I've always been jealous. From the time we were kids. Just 4 words, but they hung in the air between us like a confession in church. I know, I said quietly, gently. I've always known, Lana. Even when I didn't want to admit it to myself. She looked up at me, mascara slightly smudged now despite her efforts. Can we talk? Really talk? Not here obviously, but somewhere private? I know I don't deserve it, but please? I considered her request carefully. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave her standing there alone, to let this moment be the final scene in our story. But another part, the part that still remembered us as children, sharing a bedroom and secrets and dreams about our futures, that part made me nod slowly. We found a bench in a quiet courtyard outside the convention center, away from the crowds and noise. The spring air was cool and fresh. I didn't mean to hurt you, Lana said softly, staring at her hands folded in her lap. Not in the beginning anyway. I just didn't know how to be happy for you and unhappy with myself at the same time. I sighed, feeling years of accumulated pain trying to form into coherent words. You didn't have to mean it, Lana. The hurt was real regardless of your intentions. She looked directly at me then. I was jealous because you were always smarter, more driven, more capable. I had to work so incredibly hard just to get people to notice me, and you just existed and people respected you naturally. So I tried to take that away from you, to diminish you so I could feel bigger. I know, I repeated. The admission didn't magically heal everything between us. It didn't erase years of accumulated hurt or make painful memories disappear. But it was something real. A crack in the wall that had grown between us. I wish I could say everything was perfect after that conversation. It wasn't. Real life doesn't work like movies where one emotional talk fixes decades of damage. Lana quit social media entirely, deleted most of her accounts. She moved out of her expensive apartment into something she could actually afford. Her divorce finalized quietly with minimal drama. Sometimes she'd text me. At first just short messages, saw your latest project in the business section. Really impressive work. Then gradually longer ones, started seeing a therapist. Learning some difficult truths about myself. I'd reply, but briefly, thank you. That's a positive step. I appreciate you sharing that. I didn't know how to rebuild what had been so thoroughly broken, or even if it should be rebuilt at all. But I continue. Months later, I visited one of our newest properties, a stunning mixed-use tower overlooking the river, all glass and steel catching the afternoon sunlight. The young receptionist at the front desk looked up and smiled brightly when I walked in. You must be Ms. Winslow. We're so honored to have you here. I actually wrote my senior thesis about your development philosophy. I looked around the polished lobby with its modern furniture and carefully selected art, at the people moving through this space I'd created from nothing but vision and determination. I thought about all the times I'd been told I'd never make it. Every failure that people had mocked. Every rejection letter. Every condescending comment. Every moment of doubt. Every scar had somehow built this moment. Every betrayal had taught me who to trust and who to keep at arm's length. Every humiliation had given me fuel to prove everyone wrong. That night, I drove past the cafe where I'd first met Lana about her doomed project proposal. The one where she'd had absolutely no idea she was pitching to me, to the sister she'd spent years claiming would never amount to anything meaningful. The same corner table where she'd sat was visible through the large front windows. For just a second, I saw her there again in my memory, bright, desperate, arrogant, trying so hard to impress people who didn't matter. I almost smiled at the ghost of that memory. "You got your legacy," I whispered to my own reflection in the car window. "Just not the one you imagined or planned for yourself." Neither of us had gotten exactly what we'd planned, really. But mine felt earned through years of work. Built on something solid and real, not borrowed or rented or performed for cameras. Jonah called me later that evening as I was reviewing acquisition contracts in my home office. "Saw your keynote went viral online. 40 million views across all platforms now. You're officially famous, not just successful." I laughed softly, closing my laptop. "I'm not famous, Jonah. I'm just finally visible. There's an important difference between those two things." "Fair point," he conceded. "Have you talked to Lana recently? How's she handling everything?" "She texts sometimes," I said carefully. I honestly don't know what we are anymore. Not enemies exactly. Not sisters the way we used to be. Something undefined in between." "Maybe that's perfectly okay," Jonah offered thoughtfully. "Maybe some relationships don't need neat labels or definitions. They just need honesty and space to breathe." After we hung up, I thought about that observation. About labels and categories and the human need to define everything precisely. Winner and loser. Success and failure. Revenge and forgiveness. Victory and defeat. Maybe real life existed in those gray spaces between the extremes we tried to create. The press kept calling my story "The Quiet Revenge" in headlines and articles. Industry analysts wrote think pieces about sibling dynamics and family business conflicts. Podcasts discussed my journey and invited me for interviews. I never corrected their revenge narrative, never clarified what had really happened. Let them call it whatever they wanted. I knew the truth. It wasn't revenge in the end. It was recognition, the kind that comes when you finally stop waiting for validation from people who will never give it freely, and instead build your own empire of proof. Every successful company starts with someone being laughed at, dismissed, underestimated. I just happened to remember that sound clearly enough to use it as fuel instead of letting it destroy me. Sometimes late at night I still think about that birthday dinner, the perfectly staged humiliation, the cameras capturing my embarrassment, the laughter rippling through the room. I don't resent it anymore, not really. It shaped me in ways that comfort and encouragement never could have. The failure they mocked became the foundation for something far stronger and more lasting than their temporary approval ever would have been. 6 months after my keynote speech, I received an unexpected letter in my office mail. Handwritten on expensive stationery, not typed. Lana's handwriting, which I still recognized from years of reading her notes and birthday cards and angry letters when we were younger. "Dear Kira," it began in her careful script. "I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even sure I deserve the opportunity to ask for it. But I wanted you to know something important. Watching you succeed, really succeed with substance, not the fake Instagram kind I was chasing, taught me more than any of my own failures ever could have. You showed me what it actually means to build something real and lasting. I'm trying to do that now in my own small way. Not for followers or likes. Just for myself. Thank you for not giving up on me completely, even when I gave you every possible reason to. Your sister, Lana." I read those words 3 times, sitting at my desk as the sun set over the city I'd helped build and reshape. Then I picked up my phone and typed a simple response: "Coffee sometime?" No cameras, no agenda. Just 2 sisters talking honestly. She replied within seconds, faster than I'd ever seen her respond to anything. "Really? You'd want that? Really, I confirmed. But I'm buying. And we're going to my cafe in the building I own downtown. She sent back a laughing crying emoji, the first moment of genuine humor between us in years. Deal. I probably deserve that. I smiled at my phone screen. I didn't know if we'd ever be truly close again, if trust once shattered so completely could ever be fully repaired and made whole. But maybe we didn't need to return to what we were before. Maybe we could build something entirely new instead. Something honest and real that acknowledged our painful past without being imprisoned by it forever. If Lana ever wonders what became of her failure sister, the one living with roommates, taking Ubers because she supposedly couldn't afford a car, working some nobody job that barely paid rent, I hope she finally knows the complete truth now. I'm still sharing space with people. Only now, it's with a skyline that bears my name on multiple buildings. A legacy built not on appearances or Instagram filters, but on something solid that will stand long after the social media posts fade into digital obscurity. And if that's not the sweetest possible revenge, no, not revenge, something better than revenge, something more like justice and vindication and proof that underestimation can be the greatest gift if you're strong enough to use it as motivation, then I don't know what possibly could be. Because I didn't destroy Lana to rise up. I just finally stopped letting her destroy me. And in that space where her critical voice used to live constantly in my head, always diminishing, always doubting, I built something extraordinary that no one can ever take away from me. Not with mockery, not with dismissal, not with anything. It's mine. Built, earned, and absolutely real.